everybody. Welcome back to the UP, where we have another guest on the show. This one's been a long time coming. Kimi Sikora. Do you say I never say your last name is Sikora?
Sikora.
So exactly how it's spelled. Okay, so Kimi is a former. Well, I almost just called you former. Are you still a professional grass volleyball player, or did you hang up the cleats?
Semi-retired.
Semi-retired.
Semi-retired. So,
but former collegiate volleyball player. Into a transition to the professional grass life, and now you are trying to be a pickleball star.
Yes.
That's awesome.
You know, my husband likes to say that I'm not saving anything for retirement, so I picked up golf, gardening, and pickleball. So what I'm going to do when I turn 60, I have no idea. But
You're just using it all up right now.
just getting it all out right now.
So let's kick it off with how did you and I meet?
I moved back to the suburbs. My husband and I, we moved 2 weeks before COVID hit, so that was fun. And then in 2020, I was also debating on retiring from volleyball, and started playing again, started competing, and actually started doing really, really well. So was not ready to hang up the cleats yet. And then I just, being an athlete and majoring in kinesiology, I needed to get back into the gym, but I can't train myself. So I was gym hunting. And
What do you mean you can't train yourself?
I overthink it. It's one of those things of I could write a program for even most athletes, maybe not at the professional level, but even like a junior athlete, I could write a program within 20 to 30 minutes, but you get me walking into the gym trying to write a program or even just a single workout for myself, and I just overthink it of like, oh, I want to work on this. Oh, I want to work on this. And next thing you know, I've just been like, it's like not like a trainer's version of writer's block of like, I just can't put anything on paper for me to do. So that's why I could not train myself for the life of me. So I was gym hunting, and I went back to a gym that I had trained at for years, for a while. Great environment, love the trainers, but timing wasn't working well. Of
The schedule.
Yeah, scheduling was a big thing. Of a lot of times, the only time I could go in there where it actually our schedules met was when I was training around a whole bunch of kids, and I knew what I wanted when I was in the gym, and I didn't want little kids in the way when I was doing it. So just wasn't my environment. And then the other thing was just the programming wasn't quite matching what I wanted. I noticed probably within 2 months, I wasn't feeling like myself on the court. I was feeling a little bit slower, a lot more pain. That was the big thing, was noticing pain. And I'm like, I got to change up something. So here's the best part. I went on Google Maps because I had talked
That's
to
how you found me?
Yeah, Google Maps.
I thought someone referred.
No, because here's the best part is I had talked to the gym. I've been like, and number one thing is I didn't want any animosity of like, oh, I hate you guys. This has been terrible. Because it wasn't. Like, they really.
Well, you had a relationship with them.
Correct. Oh, yeah. Like, not just like trainer to athlete, but like friends for years. So didn't want to leave anything on a bad note. And I had asked them of like, do you know of any places, like any other gyms in the area where my schedule might match up better? And they said no. They said no. And I'm like, God, that just can't be right. Like, yeah. I'm sorry, but like you can run a phenomenal gym, and guess what? There can be another phenomenal gym. Like, that's okay to have in the world. And so I went on Google Maps, and I just looked up gyms around me, and I started.
What did you type in out of curiosity for my SEO optimization?
Athletic gym.
Athletic gym.
Athletic gym.
You got that SEO on lock.
And this is a person who doesn't I understand a little bit of how like algorithms work, but I was trying to like, okay, gym for athletes, athletic gym, something. And TNT Athletics popped up, and I had never heard of you guys. And even growing up in this area, I'm like, what is this gym? And so looked it up online, and I go, okay, you know what?
You messaged me on Facebook.
Yes, I
Yeah.
did. And I just wanted to try it out. And it's hard, like, trying to sell my resume of, like, yes, I technically play a professional sport because I play for money. And at the time, I'm coming from an environment that's like the top 3% of our sport. But it's also a glorified hobby at the end of the day because I'm not playing for millions of dollars. I have to have a full-time job. I'm doing this all on my own. So it's how do you sell a trainer of like, I'm competing at the highest level and yet I have a regular job at the
Mhm.
same time. But it was easy conversation with you. And so it was just came like
Well, it's so easy. It's so relatable
Yeah.
from my perspective too, because I'm still try to train like a monster. I don't think that's ever going to leave me. I
Yeah.
always want to train like an
Oh, for sure.
athlete.
Yeah.
So when I heard you talk about it, it's like, yeah, that looks a little. Is that choppy? A little bit. There's a little delay.
Karate chop.
Whatever. It's all good.
Going.
Yeah, just keep going.
Um,
We'll fix it another day. This is part of the growing pains. This is episode 3. So
Yeah. Well,
part of
there's
the
going to be
growing
growing pains.
But no, it was so relatable with the way you were talking about it. So it was very easy to communicate and understand where you're coming from.
Yep. And then naturally, like every other athlete walking into TNT, I went through my hell week. Was happy to say it was exactly what I thought of. My legs survived it, my upper body didn't. Just like most volleyball players, like barely any upper body muscle, whole lot of leg endurance. But it was just the environment that really kind of sold me of this is what I want. This is what I'm looking for in the gym. This is when I can train. And then just went from there. Right away, it was, no, we need to put some strength back on you. So you shut me down from like the plyometric and more of the athletic training standpoint right away, which was good for me because it was not something I'd ever really done before. So it was kind of a whole new perspective of lifting of like,
Wait, did you say that backwards? You said I shut you down from the plyometric and then we
Yeah.
went strength?
yeah, we really focused on strength.
Okay.
Like
You're going to remember better than I did.
Yeah,
There's-
yeah. Like you're like, we need to put some strength on you right away.
It's
And
probably due to
then-
the time of the year too.
It was.
Right.
It was. I was in off season. That's
Okay.
the biggest thing of
Yeah.
like, no way we would have done that if I was in season.
Yeah.
But I was in off season and I just said, you know, I trust the process. You know how many times you hear that in the athletic world, in the gym world, in the fitness world of like, you have to trust the process. And yet most people don't anyway, no matter how many times they hear it. And so, good God, do I remember being sore, so sore. But I noticed probably within a month, just noticed getting stronger, which was not a feeling that I'd ever really experienced before. For as many different trainers and as many times I've been into the gym, I never thought I got stronger. It was just kind of one of those things that it was always just, that was kind of a stagnant part of, I was always quick. I was always like, you know, athletic and smart, but I would never describe me as a strong athlete. So,
Especially your upper body.
get correct. Yeah. Noodle arms.
Yeah. You
Baby arms.
Kimmy brings the jokes, and every time
Yeah.
you work out, you bring the upper arm
You
or the
need
upper body
sarcasm.
jokes.
You need sarcasm. You
Yeah.
need to be able to laugh at yourself, even as an athlete. Doesn't matter what level that you are, you need to be able to laugh at yourself. That no matter what, like, we can say we're athletes, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to have like a jacked back or like super strong arms. But yet I can do what I do
Yeah.
at a high level.
Of course, yeah.
So,
Okay, so we started training. If I remember correctly, too, we really had to focus on diet.
oh yeah,
You were
we
lacking.
still do.
Yeah, we still do. Doesn't everyone?
Yeah.
It's the battle that everybody has because
Yeah.
most people, right? Working out is not hard.
No.
It's kind of the fun part. The not fun part is the hours and hours you put into meal prepping,
Yep.
you know, planning your day, getting your sleep, drinking your water. That's the worst for me is water. Water for
Yeah.
me is so bad. I do not drink
I'm
enough
not.
water.
I like water is a roller coaster for me where I'm really good at it and then I'm really bad at it and then I'm really good at it and then I'm really bad at it. So I like laugh because especially nowadays with like the social media fitness influencers when they're like a day in the life with me, I'm like, absolutely not. There's no way that you live every single day of your life like that. Like you're full of shit. Like you're full of it because there was actually a great post that I saw the other day that was like a social media influencer on what a recovery day looks like versus what a real athlete does on recovery day. And it's like a social media influencer of like, I wake up, I stretch for 30 minutes, I drink my water. And it's like they pan over to the D1, like the D1 athlete on a recovery day of like 10 a.m.
Yeah.
like this, it's like reality versus social media. And it's like, it's so true. And even on the athlete side, like what a lot of athletes like, do you know the diets of most NFL players are absolutely awful? Like the amount of time, oh my God. Yeah, like you know the football world, but I can tell you of like, yes, they like to show the athletes that are super serious about their diet. And then you get the guy that's, he's burning 10,000 calories a day and the dude has McDonald's on speed dial and absolutely does not feel it. Absolutely does not feel like crap at all and just runs on McDonald's and fast food.
Yep. I don't know. We had a couple athletes like that, and it pissed me off. Because I would meal prep in college, and meal prepping in college is like a big deal, especially as an athlete. And I had a job too.
Yeah, mine was making ramen. That was my meal prep. Was ramen noodles.
Right. I was a full-time student. I was doing training because I knew that I loved it, so I was a personal trainer. And then I was full-time athlete, and I was meal prepping. So I would bring my chicken and vegetables and my rice to the locker, and I would sit down, and I would eat maybe before practice, and I would just watch all these freaking jacked, shredded dudes, 5-6% body fat come in with Chick-fil-A or that's when Chick-fil-A was becoming a really big thing.
I wasn't 5% body fat, but I was the athlete that just ate whatever I wanted. Did not take diet seriously. Didn't grow up in an environment that took diet seriously. I mean, I love my dad. My dad has been the greatest mentor I could ever ask for. But if he could get a 0 in a category, it'd be diet. And he's still like that.
The typical dad.
Oh my gosh. He'll still come up to me and be like, oh, I think I want to try gluten-free. I'm like, Dad, just eat more vegetables. Like put something green on your plate. No, I'm a super taster. That's what he calls himself. A super taster because he saw one news documentary on people who are categorized as super tasters, as in their taste buds don't like certain things. And my dad was like,
I don't like the taste of any vegetable. The only time that I'll eat I'll love vegetables is grilled in butter.
But like, here's a perfect example of like how easy it is for people to look at the TV and be like, yep, that's me. But just because like they related to 10% of it of like,
super taster.
I don't like the taste of vegetables.
When was that?
This was years ago.
Oh, okay.
This was absolutely years ago.
I feel like I would have saw
And he's
this.
still the same way. And I'm like, Dad, do you think that I prefer a salad over Chick-fil-A? Absolutely not. But I just have to do it.
Right.
But that's where I like to joke. If anybody knows me and you know how stubborn I am, if you look at my dad, you know exactly where it comes from. That's it. He's a super taster, and that's what he's convinced of. So I tell him, I'm like, just put something green on your plate. No, absolutely no. I take my vegetable supplement. I'm like, oh, okay, Dad. That'll do it.
What supplement does he take?
The Balance of Nature stuff, which it's not bad in the grand spectrum of supplements.
Bad, but no supplement is as good as the whole foods that you can be eating.
No.
And that's what a lot of people misinterpret supplements. Mm-hmm. They're like, I take this instead of this. I'm like, no, that is a supplement.
Supplement. Like, let's
Google the word supplement.
Right.
Like, what does it mean? It means to supplement something. So if your diet and I know we've had this conversation before because you've kind of asked my take on supplements. And like, dude, if your diet's not locked down, don't touch a supplement. There's no point. And once you lock the diet down 4 weeks, okay, let's talk about adding creatine. Let's talk about adding maybe BCAAs. And everyone's a little different and responds differently. But, okay, so we found TNT. We like TNT. Mm-hmm. We saw a ton of results. I know we did because it showed in our testing.
Yep. And then once we reintroduced like plyometrics back in, it was one of those things where I had never felt more explosive on the court. I felt light. I still wasn't even at the weight that I wanted to be, but I'm sure we're going to get into that about body image issues and everything because I played professional beach volleyball for a couple years. So I come from a sport that you're in a bikini all the time.
And you were constantly comparing yourselves to all the other girls.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly. And you always make these little jabs.
At myself. Yep.
At yourself. And I'm like, there's more to this. Like, I know Kimmy's just making jokes, but like, this is a little deeper than.
It went way deeper. I mean, I've had some not so good coaches with that of like, and it doesn't matter. They're at the highest level and they're still pulling this shit. Oh, they do. They get away with it.
Can you expand on that? Are you okay with expanding on that?
Oh yeah.
So like when you say that, are you referring to like how they would approach the way you look and say we need to get your body fat down, or like what? Like how was it presented where you didn't like it?
So my senior year of college, and I'm sure we'll get into talking about like my anxiety story with like mental health and everything.
Real quick, where did you go?
So my first 2 years I played at Kishwaukee College, close to us over at NIU. We won back-to-back junior college national championships there. I pretty much got every accolade that you could get. I loved my coach, one of the best coaches, if not the best coach I've ever played for. And he died of brain cancer, very, very sad. And then after that, I transferred into Penn State University, which was the #1 volleyball school in the nation at the time. And that's where mental health took a big shit for many different reasons. I'm allowed to say that, right?
Yeah, you can say whatever.
Okay, I figured it's called Unpolished.
Yes.
So.
We are unpolished, yes.
But so my junior year, I played at Penn State University. We won the NCAA championship, which is pretty cool. So I've got a Division I ring underneath my belt as well. And then my senior year, I transferred to University of Louisville. It's not Louisville, it's Louisville. So there's that.
There's that.
But
so this is senior.
This is my senior year.
That was senior year. Okay.
Yeah. And to get into where the weight issues started, every single Monday morning, because we did 5 a.m. lifts there, every single Monday morning we had to do skin fold tests. Every single Monday morning. So, and those skin fold tests, for those of you who don't know what they are,
I would never do that with
is
females.
picture the giant tweezers, and you have to strip down to your spandex and sports bra, and your trainer is just grabbing pieces of your body, pieces of your fat, and logging in the numbers. And they say they can't tell you to lose weight. But what they can do is they can bring you into the office and tell you what your body fat percentage is and where it should be.
What do you mean they say? So they're not allowed to say you got to lose weight?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're saying it was just their way around
of basically saying like, we're not going to tell these girls that they need to lose weight, but we're going to track their body fat percentages and say your goals should be this, or you need to be here. And
I'm not super against that, and I think it could be presented in a correct way.
I think the relationship, though, like when you're dealing with females versus males, I think the relationship and the trust needs to be established first.
Yeah, you definitely need a relationship before you get down
Correct.
your
Of
skivvies.
Like from that trainer to that athlete perspective. Like, don't get me wrong, I think he was a good trainer, but I think there was a misconnection of, you are doing this to a whole bunch of females versus males, and you're treating them and talking to them to the same way. Yeah. And it can't be done. Like, it just can't. Like, there is a fundamental difference between the way that female brains work and communicate versus males. And that's a big one. That's a huge one is weight. Because female, especially athletes, like, our bodies are built differently. Men are too, but men aren't as sensitive to that. Females are very, very sensitive because from day one, we are taught, to care about how we look. Whether it's subliminal or not, we are taught how to care how we look. And so they were basically telling me, you need to lose weight. And it's one of those things of like, I knew it. I knew it just because at Penn State, from all my mental health, I had gained weight. It was the first time where I had ever looked at myself as being overweight. And I wasn't super overweight. I probably needed to drop between 15 to 20 pounds. But it was the first time ever I looked in the mirror and hated my body. And so my senior year was the first year where I actually started looking in a diet, and nothing worked. Nothing worked. Nothing was working. I didn't understand diet. I didn't know what to do. I was also really depressed because I was having these episodes, as I like to call them, because I didn't know what they were at the time, where I just couldn't control what was happening in my body. Later on, they were diagnosed as panic attacks. And then later on after that, they were no longer panic attacks. They were something different. But again, I'm sure we'll get into that. But talking about my weight, I went through a decade, and this is throughout my entire beach volleyball career, where I'm in a bathing suit all the time, that I was never comfortable in my own skin.
Has that changed now?
Yes and no. I still struggle with it.
Well, I think a
mean,
little bit of discomfort is important.
yes.
You don't want to be comfortable all the time. Like, there's always something to improve on.
Correct.
If you're 3% body fat, if you're 10% body fat, there's always something to
I
get
think
better
my
at, get
biggest discomfort now is trying to figure out where I am as far as like, am I retired or am I not retired? What does this mean? And so it's translated into the weight room. I mean, you know me, I've pretty much disappeared from the weight room for like 6 months after I said I was retiring, which obviously is going to lead to your body changing. It's going to. And so now I'm in this phase of like trying to define what the gym means to me, and I'm still trying to figure that out.
What does it mean to you right now?
I don't know. That's the truth of it all, is I don't know. Because if you want to know all the questions that are rolling around in my head of, to put it in perspective for people who don't know me, I'm in this very interesting spot of, I retired, quote unquote, when I was still like probably top 1 to 3% in the sport. But then I got some unfortunate medical news that pretty much said, in order for you to feel better, you need to leave the sport. And it was one of those things that was like shell shock. I mean, I didn't feel it at the time, physically, but I think.
Can you share what that news was or is?
Yeah. I think.
Obviously, don't say anything you don't want to say.
No. I'm an open book about all this stuff, but let me kind of finish on where I am now, and then we can kind of start like
circle back. Jen Psaki, circle back.
Let's circle back and never circle back. But where I'm at now is being an athlete that was trying to retire when she was still at the top. I would say, like, humble brag, but I worked my ass off to get there. So I'm proud to admit I'm proud of the things that I did, so I can say that.
Well, one of our favorite things to talk about too was you were scrapping with all these 18, 19, 21, 22-year-olds.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "Oh my God, you're 30 plus years old."
Yes. So that was a thing this year when I said, like, I had posted on social media that I'm walking away from the sport, and I put for now because I wanted to leave it like as in a ... Maybe we'll see. I was 34, turning 35 at the time, and then I realized that a lot of the girls that I compete against are A, either a decade or more younger than me, and B, they didn't know how old I was. They most of them thought I was around 28. And I'm like, no, I'm 34. Like, but.
And for the people who don't know the difference between 28 and 34, it is a big difference.
Just wait till your joints 20s, feel it. Just wait. Wait.
I feel like 30.
You're teetering at 30. You're starting like,
yeah.
I will say this, 31 was where all of a sudden I was like, why does my knee hurt? Like, what?
You know what it was for me? It was just waking up. Do you feel like you got a good night's sleep?
Yeah.
You wake up and you're like, why does it feel like I got hit by a train?
Correct. Where you're like,
What?
where did that pain come from?
Why,
Like,
why am I sore? I didn't even work out yesterday.
yeah.
Oh, I slept weird. And that's
Yeah.
all it takes
You're like,
when
I
you're 30
slept
plus
weird and
years
now
old.
I need an ER. Like, but so I sat there and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to leave this sport. I needed a break from the gym. I think that that was the biggest thing. And I think that you and I struggled with it because you wanted me back in there. And this is a true story. I came and I did a TNT workout. And it's supposed to be something that I've loved. I've loved, like, since I discovered the gym, I loved it. It was my outlet, my stress relief. Even on my shit days, I still walked out feeling better. I got halfway through my workout. It was probably, I don't know, a month and a half after I was trying to walk away. I got halfway through my workout and I had to walk into the back and I started crying. Like, I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I don't know what this means. I don't even know where these tears are coming from. It was just like this outburst of emotion. And I don't think you were there that day. I think it was just Colton. And of course, like, Colton has no idea. And so I just walked up and I was like, oh, Colton, I got a rink call. I got to go. Like, and I probably ran out faster than I've ever even ran on that treadmill. Like, I just bolted out of the gym. And it was really hard. And I got into the car and I started driving because I didn't want to be in the gym parking lot. And I started bawling. Like, I was just so, and I didn't know what I was crying about. I had no idea. I couldn't define it. All I knew is I'm like, I can't be around the gym. I just can't right now. I'm not ready. And I had to take several months off. Like, I couldn't even think about it. I wasn't working out. You know, I was meeting friends for dinner and I was doing all these things. I was saying yes to all these other things, but I couldn't even look at a volleyball. I shouldn't say that. I was playing for fun. I couldn't look at a volleyball in a competitive sense.
Were you playing for fun, though?
Yeah, actually.
I know that's hard for you.
Yeah, but that's because I was getting drunk when I was playing. There's the honest truth of it. So I didn't have to think about it. I was shutting that part of my brain off. And then it was probably about 6 months into taking a break from it all that I started to miss the gym. And in the meantime, I had picked up pickleball. So I would say 6 months from that period of trying to walk away, I did an evaluation of where I was mentally, physically, whatever. Knew I didn't like where I was physically. I felt like shit all the time. Still do. I'm still trying to figure out how to get back into it and what that means. Mentally, what I had realized and what I am realizing now is that I was trying to walk away from volleyball because I was told this is the source of your stress and stress is making you sick. And what I'd done was walked away from volleyball and picked up pickleball immediately. And so it was one of those things of every stressor that I was telling myself I was walking away from, I was walking right back into it, into another sport. In the sense of, I don't know how to train for fun. I don't know how to play for fun. Let me back up. I do know how to play for fun, but I can't. I just can't.
Well, it was really funny. We played sand. Every summer, well, not every summer. I think this past summer we didn't do it, but 2 summers ago we got the in on side outs.
Yeah.
And we were playing sand volleyball, and you came one day, and I just remember thinking like, Kimi is taking this way too seriously.
Yep. I can't. It's like my brain does not understand how to take a chill pill when it comes to sports. And like, I can actually get into, I think that would be a really good lesson for why it goes back to that, because it took a long time and it is something that I'm very passionate about talking about. So if we want to transition, we can go into that.
I mean, we can.
So if anybody who knows me knows that on the court, I have been called a bitch, an asshole, overcompetitive, feisty, doesn't know how to lose. And if you ask anybody who plays against me and they've only ever played against me, that's 99% of answers. But if you ask teammates who have played with me, like, and this will be a brag, but they love to play with me. They love to be on the court with me. They love being my teammate. So it's one of those things of like, if you only play against me, why is that your review of me, and why the people who play with me love me? And it's just this passion and this will to win, and I'm going to do it at whatever it costs, mentally, physically, or whatever. And my teammates never have to question if I give 110% on the court. And I've always been that way, but it took a very long time to understand that balance, because that review of me of like, she's a bitch, she's over competitive, she's feisty, my teammates used to say that about me. And it was probably in my mid-20s when I was playing beach full time, because beach volleyball is 2-on-2. So
you went from college to beach to grass.
To grass, yeah. And grass in our area is traditionally 3-on-3. We have the best grass triples in the country right here in Illinois and Wisconsin. So it was around my mid-20s where I realized, like, we were doing well in beach. I mean, we weren't like top of the top of the top, but we were doing well. But I realized that I was losing partners, like one after the other, even when we were winning. And it was this moment of realizing, of like looking in the mirror of like, I'm the problem, that I'm being the shitty teammate.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hard pill to swallow of, well, I don't understand. We're winning. Like, what's the big deal? And that's when I started to understand of like, there's so much more to being an athlete, being a high level athlete and being a top athlete in a team sport than just W's and L's on the board. And so I started to, the first question I have to ask myself is, why am I like this? Where does this come from? Why am I so miserable on the court even when I'm winning? And it goes way back to when I was an inline speed skater, because my family has owned a roller rink my entire life. So I was an inline speed skater, and my dad and my mom used to be my coach. And
you can plug your business if you'd like.
Yeah, go Xtreme Wheels Roller Skating Center. But come skate with us. But I was an inline speed skater, which is obviously an individual sport. And when I was a little kid, if my mom and my dad were my coach, if I lost a race, my mom would take me outside and beat the shit out of me.
What the? You
Yeah.
never told me this.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. It was, it wasn't fun. So if I lost a race, or I should say if I lost a meet, because you had to skate multiple races, but if I lost the overall competition,
like
yeah, just hit me and scream at me of like, you're a piece of shit. Why do I even coach you? That's
Where's
like,
Dad?
We'll get to that. So because my dad would be coaching the other athletes, because my mom and my dad were the head coach of the team. So what would happen is, after it was all done, obviously I'd be in tears, but then she would look at me and she'd be like, don't tell your father. And you have to remember, I'm a little kid. So now at first,
And you just got beat up.
Yeah, at first by my mother. So I didn't know anything else. I didn't know that wasn't normal.
How old are you?
I started skating when I was 4. So
Oh my God.
It started back then.
Now I get the insight on why you make mom jokes.
Yeah. But so she would say, don't tell your father. And I learned not to tell him. And here's why. Because you got to remember, this is the 90s. She my reward for not telling my dad is she would take me, if my dad was off running the rink and she would have me at home, she would take me to Toys R Us and spend, I don't know, $150, which back then, I'm getting toys up to here. Like, so she would take me, and that was my reward for not telling my dad. So what I learned is keep your mouth shut, take the beating, and you're going to get a whole bunch of
Just
toys for
reinforce
it.
behavior.
Yeah. And so, obviously that went on for a long time. Then I got into the volleyball world, and now it's a team sport. So now I'm in this environment of if I lose, well, what does that mean? And so getting into the team world, when I lost a volleyball match, and if somebody ends up listening to this podcast who was my teammate way back then, they're going to be like, yeah, I remember this. I would cry. I would lose my shit. I'd have to go to the bathroom. I would scream. I have screaming fits. And I had a really hard time fitting in team environments when I was younger. One, I was a total tomboy. I was not a girly girl at all. And now I'm all of a sudden shoved into a team sport where it's a whole bunch of girly girls. And so I didn't fit in that sense. But like the biggest thing was throwing fits when I lost. Now, by the time I joined volleyball, my parents were already in the middle of divorce, which my parents' divorce lasted 4.5 years.
Super fun.
So yeah, for two reasons. One, battle for the business and custody of me. So shout out to my dad because it took him 4.5 years, but he got custody of me. Which, for anybody listening, in Illinois, that's hard to do. Illinois does not.
Male.
Yeah, Illinois does not favor the father. It favors the mother big time. So now I am, trying to navigate this team sport world and just struggling. And I struggled and struggled and struggled. Even throughout college, I struggled big time to understand it. And by then, getting into the high school and club era, I was starting to lose the relationship with my mother because obviously I didn't live with her anymore. But now, kind of fast forward to this moment of why am I like this on the court? Why am I the teammate that's miserable to be around? I realized I'm like, oh, I had to go way back and way deeper than this of like, it was this pattern of behavior that was established right away of like losing is not acceptable, of like I should be ashamed of myself for losing. And I think unfortunately and fortunately there was a greatest strength of mine that came out of it, and there was also a greatest weakness. And for a long time I didn't understand either side of that. And I think the greatest strength was being the hardest worker in the room, not caring what kind of adversity was thrown at me. Like, I'm going to beat it. I'm going to win it out. Because I faced hell and back with politics of club volleyball. Like, I was not the silver spoon fed kid. I had to deal with coaches and politics and everything else. And I survived all of that. And I still managed to have an extremely successful career. So that's the greatest strength that comes from that. But that greatest weakness is
A fear.
the fear. It was fear. It was doubt. It was not understanding balance as an athlete, not understanding the balance of what it means, of what sport means to us as humans. It almost became not human-like to me. It was just almost robotic of like, it's either like Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. Like, and that's all I knew. And it's truly, it took years, and it took years of conscious effort to change that mentality. And probably mid-20s through around 30 was where I really started to understand that balance better. And it was after 30s where the peak, the most success I've ever seen in sports happened. I mean, I've had some pretty damn cool things in my career as a volleyball player, but the happiest and the most successful I've ever been was after I turned 30, and I 100% give credit to finally understanding the balance of an athlete, of like how to enjoy the fruits of my labor and how to be proud of myself and how to just truly like step out on the court and enjoy the moment. And it didn't mean that I stopped losing. It just meant that I understood better what losing meant, what that loss meant. And the truth of it was most of the time, it didn't mean shit. Like, and here's what I mean by that, of it wasn't the first time I was going to lose, and it wasn't the last time I was going to lose.
It also doesn't mean the world is going
Correct.
to fall apart.
It didn't mean the world was crashing down on you, because at the end of the day, it is a sport. And I think a lot of athletes at that level don't understand that, and they never learn that lesson. I mean, look at Michael Phelps. Like, we all talk about the depression that he went through afterwards, of like, the man is the most successful Olympic athlete in history, and he still went through a massive depression. What does that mean?
I honestly didn't know that.
Yeah, he went through a massive depression. And now it's cool. He's a spokesperson for, it's one of the major apps that are out there, but he's a spokesperson for mental health. And he talks about it. And
he's one of the most decorated winners of all time.
Correct. And he went through
he was on every magazine. He was in every commercial. I'm pretty sure I can picture him in like a Got Milk ad.
Yeah.
When Got Milk was big.
And I think learning that balance, and I started shifting my social media to talking about it. And it was cool because the way that the universe, you know, after I turned 30, like I said, extreme success on the volleyball court, got an awesome sponsorship as an athlete. And then also gained, like, I don't pretend to have 1 million followers on social media because I never tried for that. I didn't really care about that. But I started gaining an active social media following. And what I mean by that is, if you look at my profile, I mean, I've lost followers now. I think I'm like down to like, I don't know, somewhere in the 2000s. But I don't, so if you look at my profile, I don't have 10 million followers. But what I do have is I have people at volleyball tournaments coming up to me and going, I love that post that you talked about anxiety. My teammate went through that in college and she ended up quitting and stuff. And I'm like, that to me is a true social media following, because these people are reading your posts and actually truly not only relating to it, but like thinking about, like critically thinking about it, of like how it affects them. And I started talking about coaching, and I had these people that are going like, you know, I changed the way that I coach my kids, or I talk to my kids, or I've had people reach out to me like through Facebook Messenger and say like, hey, I've got this issue with this kid. Like, I just can't get her to open up. And we have this conversation. That's a real social media following, not just I clicked the like button on your post. Like, sure, I have 20 likes, which anybody would be like, that's pitiful, Kimmy. Who cares about that? Like, yeah, well, do you get to have real conversations about the stuff that you post? That to me is truly having a following of the words that you're saying and truly having an effect. And I think that, one, being an open book about all the struggles that I faced helped. Of like, if you met me in person, I talk about the same shit. Like, it's still an open book of like, yeah, guys, I used to be the biggest bitch on the court. You did not want to play volleyball with me. Like, I have no problem admitting that, because it's allowed me to become the player and the mentor and the teammate that I am today. Of, I get to say, I came from here and now I am here, and all this hard work in the middle, a lot of it sucked. A lot of it was self-reflection of looking in the mirror and facing your doubts and facing your weaknesses and being willing to admit your weaknesses. And I'm not talking about like, as volleyball players, as athletes, like we can say like, oh, I'm shitty on offense, I need to work on my offense or whatever. I'm talking about No, I wish my message that I was trying to deliver to my teammates was right, but the way that I was delivering it was garbage. And I had to work on that. And I think that I think that not just for athletes, but I think people in life need to do that. Because I think nowadays people don't want to admit their faults. Absolutely not.
Look at COVID.
Yeah. Oh God. Like it's one of those things of actually, you know what, where it's mid-February. So maybe a month from now when COVID start to hit, I like to joke with people. I'm like, why don't you take a look at the statuses that you were writing back in 2020 or the people that you were attacking or the comments that you were
Literally
making?
attacking.
Literally attacking. And can you look back on that and reflect on that, on if you were wrong, on do you think that you were wrong? Were you cruel to people? And I use the word cruel because that's what it was. They were absolutely cruel and now they
Demeaning.
look back on it and it's like, yeah, see that like, oh, look at my timeline from 4 years ago. What were you writing? You know, and
Did you I got pretty viciously attacked
Oh,
on
yeah.
social media.
Oh,
Did
God.
you get
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So bad. But I can look at it and go, you know, in my 20s, yeah, I was a pretty nasty teammate.
Mhm.
I was good. I was good player, but you did not want to play with me, you know? And now, I mean, like I said, borderline retirement, but like now the past couple years when I was at my peak, I would like to say for grass volleyball, it was always, you know, my teammate Rachel and I, phenomenal player, phenomenal person. We would choose our third based on team chemistry. Obviously, yes, we're playing at the pro level, the open level. You need a skill set. You need the basic skill set. But what elevates you from that 7th to 10th place to the 3rd to 5th to that 1st to 3rd? What are the differences? Is because at that level, everybody's got the skill set. So I want to pick a teammate because matches are to 21 points. So this is where this analogy come in. I want to pick a teammate that at 18, if I make a mistake, I want to know that those other two teammates have my freaking back of understanding you're going to happen. You're going to walk back there and miss match point serve and lose it. And I want to know that those two teammates of mine are going to turn around and play with me at the next tournament and not just walk away being like, oh, Kimi blew that match and blah, 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 blah. Like, no shit, Sherlock. I knew I blew that point. But there's two different ways to handle that. And one is very negative and one is, I don't want to say like cheery positive, but one is, I guess, the more mature way of looking at wins and losses and actually breaking it down. And so,
what kind of goes into coaching? Because I know you still coach. You love coaching.
God, I love coaching. I just don't get to do it anymore.
Yeah, when I look back at some of the bad coaches made me scared to fail.
Yeah.
It was like, don't mess up.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want to do.
No. So here's my coaching style is I ask a lot of questions. I ask a lot of questions when kids are out there and they're learning and they're figuring out, because here's why. And it goes into the schooling system now of kids are just given the answer. They're given the answer. And so they get used to that of like, they're not, a lot of these kids, a lot of these junior athletes don't actually understand adversity because they've never had to face it yet. And so a lot of these coaches that I like to say are old school, that are like, get on the line and run. It's like, you know, yours and mine generation, we understood why we were on the line. We understood that, and we understood what that meant. These kids now, we almost have to, as coaches, we have to go back a couple steps and understand they don't understand why. So they only view it as negative. So that's why when they go in of like, oh, kids are pieces of shit nowadays. Kids don't work hard anymore. Kids are this. It's like kids are still the same, but a lot of times they're growing up in an environment where they don't have to face adversity. So when they get to us as coaches that want to push them, they don't know how to be pushed yet. So we're pushing them, expecting them to understand why they're being pushed, but they don't understand why. So a lot of times when I tell kids and I introduce them to conditioning, I have to say, hey, guys, this is going to suck. This is not going to feel good. You're going to be miserable. Every single muscle is going to be screaming at you. And I want you to know that if you feel like that, that's where you're supposed to be. That's where you're supposed to be. That's what
Smart.
this is supposed to feel like. And the funny thing is these kids that apparently had work ethic issues for their club coaches, I don't have any issues with them. And it's one of those things of like understanding that they don't have a lot of the tools that we already had at their age. We already had adversity and pushing ourselves. And yeah, a lot of it was negative, like in my example. But a lot of them don't understand how to work hard yet because they haven't had to do it. And so if you just tell them, hey, get on the line and run, and they've never had the opportunity to learn why yet, some of them are going to get it naturally. But some of them, you kind of got to retract them to just step one and introduce why we work hard as athletes. And so when I coach now, I ask a lot of questions of like, hey, what were you thinking on that play? When they make a mistake. And it's amazing that when I first start with these kids, the first couple weeks, I have to tell them of like, hey, what were you thinking on that? And I have to say, if you don't know, it's okay. I want you to tell me that you don't know because now I understand where the mistake is happening. That we're actually at step one. We're not even at a step 8 out of 10 kind of mistake. We're at step 1 because you don't know what you're doing out there yet. And that's okay. But they're so terrified to say that because of other coaches that they've had that are just punishing them of like, hey, the kid is 15 years old. She's not going to have all the answers. But you're teaching her that she should know them all by now. Even at a high level, they're not going to know that. And so asking them questions and giving them an environment where they can be comfortable answering honestly, it's like you take a couple steps back and then you watch these kids just accelerate. It's amazing. It's so cool to see. And it's one of my favorite parts about being an independent coach because I like to say any club volleyball in this area would fire me in a month because I just expose all the bullshit because I can't stand it. I grew up in it and it's still all the same garbage that's going on. And it's even worse now. But I love being that independent coach because I get these kids that have so much potential but don't even know it yet because they've been in an environment where they weren't truly allowed to learn because they weren't allowed to make mistakes. They have to have the answers at 12, 13, 14. You know, we're worried about winning our 12U championship. Who the fuck cares? I'm going to say that right now. I'm going to tell you that as my 12s year, we took second in a qualifier to qualify us for nationals, and we beat the ones team, and it was at the time the top of the world. I'm going to tell you right now, none of that fucking matters. None of that matters. What should have mattered is that I missed out on some vital technique development phases because that coach was so worried about winning. So worried about winning that years later, I had to go back and fix garbage technique habits because we were more focused about wins and less about developing kids. And that's been one of my biggest missions as a coach is changing the frickin' mentality of like, yes, you want to teach the importance of winning and losing and being competitive and being an athlete. But if you sacrifice all of that, or if you sacrifice developing a kid for W's on a piece of paper when they're 14 years old and never teach them that lesson, you are a failure as a coach. You're a failure as a coach. And I like to say the most advanced coaches in the club all fight for the older divisions, 16s, 17s, 18s, when they don't realize the biggest differences that they can make are actually in the beginning. They have the chance to make the most impact at the beginning because those kids that are 16, 17, 18, one, they're glued to their phones now. Two, if they have bad technique, good luck changing it. Good luck changing it because it's almost impossible unless you want to retract them back to step one, which I have. But a lot of times by that age, you need more than a club season to do it. You need actually over a year to fix it. And like, I can say this because with you with a kinesiology background, overhead athlete, goofy footed. What are the potential problems, shoulder problems for a kid that's goofy footed? Because, you know, you got to think they are swinging outside of their range of motion because the wrong foot is forward when they jump. The kid's already been doing it for 5 years. 5 years. And nobody ever fixed it. Why? Because growing up, oh, she's great. She gets kills. She's one of our best hitters. Don't fix what's not broken. It's not broken to you because all you're looking at are wins. You're not looking at the potential that kid is going to blow out her shoulder by the time she's 18. And how many times do we see that? How many times do we see that?
I've personally seen a lot of knee issues. We actually, this was years ago, and I'm not going to say any names, but I had a organization has a physical therapist in the same building, and she had reached out to me asking if I was interested in becoming a trainer for the program. And at the end of the day, the money wasn't worth it, but she had said there were 5 ACL tears in one season. Mm-hmm. And I knew exactly why, because I knew who was training them and what his background was. But it's,
none.
None.
I know who you're talking about. None.
So I've seen it for sure, and we see it all the time. We in every sport. And one thing I want to ask you is, where do you think the change sort of stems from? You know, this winning mentality. Is that just this? Is that brewed in this travel volleyball world?
Oh, yeah. So now it's not everywhere. There are some clubs that are like personal friends of mine who are running clubs who are trying to change the environment. But in this area where we're at, I like to tell people it's like high school football in Texas. Club volleyball is here. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Now, if you can survive it, you're going to get a scholarship to college. Doesn't necessarily mean all D1, but you're going to get some of your college paid for through volleyball. It's that talented in this area. But I think the clubs in this area are all keeping up with the Joneses. They are more worried about how many winning teams that they can produce on their resume versus actually developing kids. And all of them are too big for their britches. So these kids are just being passed around like pawns between clubs. And the
passed
clubs don't
around
care.
as in they're getting up and leaving and trying new clubs and
Yep. So getting into it further, club volleyball tryouts used to be in late October, early November. Because what would happen is high school season would end, then club tryouts would begin. And then club volleyball would go, you know, depending on the level. If you were playing non-travel, like the lower level or the lesser intense level, I should say, less intense, it was, November, December through March, April. You know, if you were playing at the high level, it was December through July. And then as soon as July's done, or as soon as club is done, high school camps pick up, and then high school goes from, August. So camp season is July, then high school season is August through October.
you see this trend happening in other sports too, like baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball's a big one.
Yep. So let me ask you, did you ever hear me say the word off season?
No, there is no off season.
There is no off season. And here's the problem. Club coaches are now
High school coaches.
high school coaches.
Yeah.
So therefore, if there are plenty of high schools in this area, and I'll just call it out. I hope these high school coaches, I hope that this video gets to them because I know who they are.
Alex making note of that clip right there.
Yeah, right there. If so many of them are punishing kids if they don't play for the club that they prefer.
I hate when coaches double dip.
Oh yeah. Oh, they do it. And they try to act like they don't.
No, it's your choice.
Yeah, it's your choice.
Sure. Just as much
But I think it's a big mistake.
Yeah.
And you're like, big mistake for who? For you or for me?
It's like in college football. They're like, yeah, to get around the NC2A rules back when we played, it was summer's optional.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Is it?
Summer's optional.
Optional.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
If you want to play at all, if you want any type of chance, you got to be there all damn summer, and you got to.
So here's the environment that I grew up in. There's no off season, and my senior year. Granted, I just got off of 8 months of playing club, 3 to 4 practices a week, tournaments at least every other weekend. My family wants to go on vacation for a week during camp season. This was before tryouts. I got told, if you go on this vacation, you're going to sit the first 2 tournaments of the season.
This is for
high school.
For high school.
Mm-hmm. You're going to sit. And now you have to remember who I was back then. I was the kid who was really messed up about winning. So, of course, I was like, Dad, I can't go on vacation. There was no hesitation. Do you know what I say to kids nowadays?
Go on vacation.
Go on vacation. Absolutely go on vacation. And that coach does not have your best interest, especially you're missing camp. And I remember at the time, she gave me a speech on commitment level and all this stuff. And let's go back 8 months of club playing at the highest level. So again, 3 to 4 practices a week. And our practices were 3 hours long. Tournaments every other weekend, traveling around the country. I'm not committed enough because I want to take 1 week off and go on vacation with my family. And you want to punish me for that because I'm going to miss camp? Really? Now, like I said, at the time, there was no freaking hesitation. Now I'm telling those kids, sit those 2 tournaments. Because in the grand scheme, go on vacation with your family. Take a break. Because right now, these coaches aren't giving these kids breaks. Because 2 years ago, the Great Lakes region, which that's the region that we're in for volleyball, the Great Lakes region passed that tryouts instead of after high school season are now in July. 2 weeks after club season. Let's get into this. You just played 8 months of club, whatever it is, 7, 8 months, whatever. You just get done. You're a 16-year-old kid who's on the 2s team. You're borderline good enough for the 1s team, but politics are not in your favor. You just get done with a hell of a season. 2 weeks later, tryouts are. You don't even have time to think, oh, wait, let's add another level of complication to it. All the clubs run tryouts on the exact same 2 weekends. Oh, wait, they're also going to offer you a letter of commitment saying, oh, you don't have to try out for us if you sign this piece of paper and commit.
Money.
Oh, wait, let's add another layer to it.
This is all current?
Oh, yeah, this is what goes on right now in club. This is why, hi, here's my video on why you can never hire me as a club coach. Because I know what you do. They promised them, let's say, if I was a kid back then, or I should say, you know what, if you plug my club career into now, my 16s year, I was on the 2s team. I was definitely good enough to be on the 1s team, but I lost it to politics. So I was thinking about changing clubs. But if I go try out for one club, I can't try out for the other because they're running their tryouts at the same time. And if I try out for that club, they're going to know. So am I going to get punished if I decide to stay at the club? Because they will do that. That's one way of what they're doing it. The other thing that they're doing is they're doing these commitment letters where they're saying, well, you don't have to come to our tryouts if you commit to our club. Okay, so I was just committed. Oh yeah, you're going to be our starting ones team outside hitter. Well, okay, so I signed my letter of commitment. I'm good. I don't have to worry about it. I can go off to high school season. Meanwhile, this kid who's not satisfied at their club hits up the club that you're at, and they play in the same position as you. And this club knows that this other player is the better player. And they want to get the commitment. So they get the commitment from this kid. Oh, yeah, you're going to be our starting ones team outside hitter.
Just sounds like college recruiting.
Kid A, the kid who was promised first, is now going to be on the twos team and has no freaking idea because they don't have to tell them. The club's not going to tell them. Now all of a sudden this kid shows up and this outside hitter that is better than them is now playing for the club. Oh, what happened to my commitment? What happened to my commitment? The clubs don't care. They got the better kid. And that's going on right now. That's what they're doing. And so when they moved these tryouts to July, what the region said was, we're doing this so we can move tryouts early so clubs can have an adequate amount of time to see how many coaches we need and prep for the season. Now, granted, that all sounds really nice on paper, but that's not why they're doing it. They're doing it because they're making all of these promises behind closed doors. And who's getting punished? The kids. The kids. And I'll tell you what, most of the clubs in this area are struggling for coaches. They are struggling. They are having coaches who have to coach 2 to 3 teams. Didn't used to be like this. And why can't they find coaches? One, the pay sucks. I'm going to tell you that flat out. These clubs that are raking in millions, most of these clubs in this area are multi-million-dollar companies, are paying their coaches garbage.
Well, I know because I had a program reach out to me. We talked about this.
Yep.
They wanted to pay me $12 an hour.
Yep.
I'm like, guys.
Yep.
This is what I do for a living.
And so
$12 an hour, and they wanted me to train like 40 athletes at a time. I'm like,
yeah, not how this works.
I don't understand. Where'd you get that number?
Yeah. Yep.
Did you ask a hobo if they would train? Was that the initial offer, the invoice?
Right. And so they pay their coaches garbage. And politics. Politics goes into coaching of like, let's say like right now, like I would say at this point, if I were to get into coaching because of my resume now, they would give me a higher level team. But I remember in my early 20s when I was still coaching club, did I need experience under my belt? Yes. But they gave me like a 3s and a 4s team. And at the time, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, right? Like, because I would look at the 1s and the 2s coaches and being like, I get that they've been here for 10 years, but their coaching technique that's 15 years old that nobody uses anymore. Like, what? Why? But it's a seniority thing.
Do they have, we're kind of sitting here making fun of travel sports, but do they have educational days, instructional days where baseball, GRB I think does a great job. GRB that's kind of where we're at, right? The TNT is in the same building, and I think they do a great job because they bring all the coaches in and they say, this is how we teach this. These are some drills to do this. This is how we throw a ball. And they make all these coaches come in and they get them all on the same page. Does
Some
volleyball do that too?
Some clubs in the area do that. Even like the local ones, like I'll put it this way, they try to claim that they do.
It's advertised that they do.
It's advertised that they do. But I'll tell you this, and I was in there as recent as just a couple years ago, running like, I'll just say it like the plyometric training or whatever. their technique is old. It's just old. It's not the technique that is being taught at the more advanced levels. And I'll put it this way I remember when I started, posting about coaches needing to modernize their technique, I would have a lot of arguments about it. Like, here's a great one that I think non-volleyball people can understand, and I'm going to explain it. When I grew up, there used to be this phrase of when you're going for the ball of like, you could see like, this is what the technique looks like. They used to argue of, if you could get it with one hand, you could get it with two, So that was the argument of like, when you're chasing down a ball, you got to try to get two hands on it. It was ingrained in me. It was just like, I can't even tell you the amount of times I heard that phrase, right? Then once I got older, I started thinking through that. And I started to think, that doesn't make sense. There's a lot about that doesn't make sense, because when you're in the moment and you're playing the sport, and like I said, at a high level, it's not like I get to say I only played at a lower level. I get to say that I played at the highest level. So my experience is now trumping your coaching handbook. There were plays where I'm like, there was no fucking way I could have gotten two hands on that ball. Just know I am full out sprinting, running, saving this ball. Like, in my head, I'm like, that looked cool. But I'm like, but I would have a coach be like, hey, two hands. And I just wanted to be like, are you out of your goddamn mind?
Even after you made a good play.
Yeah. Even after I made a good play. I'd be like, are you out of your damn mind? You go do that. Go get that ball with two. Like, and of course, that's the sassy, feisty side of me of being like.
Were you coachable?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I worked extremely hard, but I think that and I still do, my greatest weapon as an athlete has always been my brain. I've always been the smartest player on the court. That's how I beat teams. I was never the most physically gifted. I was quick and I was smart. And part of that, and this was part of that weakness that I really had to understand, was I questioned so much. If it didn't make sense to me, I questioned it. And that was part of it. So like, getting back to this like one arm versus two arm thing. So when I started to get older and I moved into the beach volleyball world, and I actually got to train with a Brazilian coach, they taught the technique of get the ball with two arms when you can, but there are certain situations where you can't. So learn what to do in those situations. And all of a sudden, it's like the light bulb that my brain had been seeking for years just turned on. Of like, somebody taught how to critically think through the game itself. Not what you're reading in a textbook, but like the game itself. Of like how to evolve. That's the right word that I like to say. That's the word that I like to use of when I evolved as a coach, when I evolved as a player. Because I'd like to think I wasn't wrong before in the way that I thought. I just got better at it. And so now I teach these kids, I was actually getting a lot of flack because I was teaching these kids, how to have ball control with just one arm when they played. And a lot of coaches were like, that's so wrong. That's so messed up. And I sat there and I said, why? Why is that wrong? They're like, it's lazy. And I'm like, yeah? And I'm like, you played the sport. How many times did you lay out for a ball with one arm? Did you thought that was lazy? And I'm like, also, here's the thing. When we do a vertical test, do the kids jump and reach with one arm or with two? What do they do? When you're trying to jump your highest, they reach with one.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why do they reach with one? Why don't when we do the vertical test, we try to reach like this? Because we can't reach as high, right? So you've got to think in planes of movement. Obviously, there's up and down. And then where it comes to volleyball, there's the horizontal plane of movement. So horizontal movement, if I can reach further this way, I can certainly reach further this way. So wrapping that back into a lot of the issues with coaching now is that's an evolved way of coaching. These coaches are not evolving with the times because they're so stuck on like, nope, this is what I learned, this is right. And it's like what I like to do as a coach is, well, what are the best players and best coaches in the world doing? Okay, why are they doing it differently? What are they doing? What technique are they teaching? And that's what I did because that's my view of it. And there was
Who
a
is
lot.
that staple? Who is that person that you would look up? Who are the best coaches?
Well, we've got one of the best in the world for the USA women's program, Karch Karai. So, he actually, if you're a volleyball player listening to this, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. For the longest time for passing or bumping, they taught a technique that was called midline passing, that you always wanted to catch the ball in the middle of your body, middle of your body, middle of your body. And anybody who knows at the high level that that's just not doable. The game is too fast for that. And there are still local clubs that are teaching that. God knows why. It's been proven on so many times on why it doesn't work. But Karch Karai moved the women's team away from that technique. And wouldn't you know it, what did they just win at the Olympics? Gold. Gold. And they are now one of the best teams in the world and one of the best ball control teams in the world. And so you sit there and you go, okay, well, why are the best teams in the world teaching this technique and you're telling me that it's wrong? And at that point, it's an ego thing. It's nothing else besides an ego thing of you're not willing. And again, we're going back to you're not willing to face the changes that you need to make in order to evolve. And it's weird of like how many times even in this conversation, how many times has that already been brought up already of like in your life, in what aspects of your life can you look at yourself and admit that you can work on things? And that I think is the number one main issue with coaching in this area right now is these coaches are too comfortable. They're too comfortable. These high school coaches that have been there forever, that are still coaching the same methods where I'm like, you know, that's like outdated, right? They don't care. They don't care. They're too comfortable. They're not going to lose their spot. And
So how do you fix it? I guess that's like the main question, right? So what approach do you take to fixing it if you can fix it?
So the structure, like, let's just talk about club volleyball because that's my world. So I can comfortably talk about that world, and what I think needs to happen. There's a major disconnect between the club directors, and the kids. There's a huge disconnect. Part of it is either the club directors don't coach anymore, so they're just behind closed doors. You know, they're not a figure or a character that any of the club can relate to anymore. That's part of it.
They take their check and
correct.
Put other people in charge.
The other reason is, or they're still coaching, which means that all of their attention are going to just the team that they're coaching. And so they don't have time to deal with the other shit that's going on. They don't have time to deal with the other coaches or to know everything that's going on. And so I think we actually need more coaches that are not in charge of a specific team. We need a coach's coach. We need a director. Like, we need more middlemen, I would like to say.
Or middle women.
Or middle women. Good God. Inclusivity. Yay. But I think we need more coaches that are mentors for like an age division of where they don't have their own specific teams. Now, then you go back to, well, Kimi, you just said that there's not enough coaches to go around. So where the hell do we come up with these new coaches? Then stop taking quantity over quality in your club. Because back in my day when I first started,
You're talking about in regards to players.
yeah, there was a ones team and a twos team. And if you didn't make it, you got cut. Now, what the clubs learned is, oh, we can do a 3, 4s, and 5s team that we can charge them the same amount of money, give them trash coaching, and these parents don't know any wiser.
They're usually like colors, right? There's like gold
Yeah.
and red
Oh, yeah.
and black.
Yeah. And then they what they'll do is every couple years they'll switch up how they do the names because they'll try to pretend of like, oh, we're not doing like, like a ones team or a two. Bullshit. Everybody
That's
knows
exactly what that means.
Bullshit. Everybody knows who's the elite team and who's the ones team, who's the twos team. Everybody freaking knows it. Don't even try to kid yourselves.
Back in the day, travel ball, like travel baseball, was the best players. It was the best players, and that was it. There was one team in each organization. It was the best players in the league, and then those teams would go travel further than the typical rec leagues, and they would play the best teams over there. And now it's like, oh my God, my son didn't make the team. I'm going to go make another team.
Yep.
And they add on just because it's money.
Yep.
It's money, 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 money.
So,
So how do you get the
think-
money out of the equation?
I think, well, here's it now. Now, granted, I've had a couple people like be like, Kimmy, you should start your own club. Good God, no. I already own a small business dealing with the public, and that is enough stress. Like, I don't have time to take on running a whole club volleyball. But this is the way that I would do it. If I were club director, I would have a ones and a twos team for travel. If you didn't make the cut, you could still get the experience of club, but you would be part of a development program.
Which is less money.
Which is less money. It's less money.
And much more emphasis on development.
Developing these kids and developing coaches, teaching these coaches, because if you get to be a ones or a twos coach, that's a freaking privilege. And I would be so quick to take that away if you abuse that privilege. But you have the ones and the twos team. But then the rest of the kids get the opportunity to come to practices. But they don't have the commitment level to where they have to travel and they have to compete and they have to do all that. But the same thing with the coaches too. These coaches are learning how to coach. And it's for the kids, it's less money and less commitment. But they get to get out of it. And so then that way they still get the opportunity to develop and to work hard to try to earn one of those starting spots. Now you go,
if
okay.
they so desire.
If they desire.
Because that's a big one.
That's another huge one. And so that's what that development part would allow of the kids that are like, I don't know if I want to do this. Okay, cool. You're coming here, you're getting better. That's it. And then the kids are like, no, I really want to work hard and I want to get better. Great. We're giving you the tools to do it.
Is there
Now
a
it's up
rec
to you.
volleyball league? Is there there's in-house baseball? Is there in-house volleyball?
Not really. But that's would have been my next thing of
Team up with like an in-house.
correct. Of like, if I would be the first club to do it, then I would do it within my own house of like run in-house tournament days now once a month. I'm not talking every single weekend. I'm talking once a month where the kids really, now this is where, again, I've never written this all out because it's not going to happen for me. These kids get to sign up if they want to play the tournament. And then you can create teams. And then they play, they compete, they go home. And you have to think of like, what do we do for little in-house leagues for soccer and t-ball and all that stuff? It's the same thing of like, it's a developmental program. It's for kids that either just want to play and get the experience or just want to get better for high school ball, or you get the kids that are in there busting their ass to try to make that ones or twos team next year. But there has to be a cutoff point of that ones or twos team. And so that's the way that I would do it. And then on top of that, going back to developing coaches, is those coaches same thing. They're going to be running these development stages, but with these experienced coaches. Because a lot of times what they do is these higher level coaches just kind of separate themselves of
They
like,
go with the higher level team.
ugh, I don't want to be bothered with these kids of like, do you understand how many potentially phenomenal athletes are in that bubble of players that you are just skipping over? And like, I'll just say this as like a self-made success story. I was that kid. I was on the 15 threes team with a garbage coach and not good volleyball team. And if I had quit because that was a miserable year of club for me, it was so bad. Like my skill set, like and again, I'll just say it, like I was the best player on the team and I knew it. I was like light years ahead of the rest of my team, but I was punished for politics. If I had quit, I would have never gotten the volleyball career that I did. And like, again, coming back to, I learned that mental toughness, there's that greatest strength coming back into play of like, I'm not going to give up on this. But a lot of kids do give up because they just get tired of it and they can't stand it. And they don't, I'll say it this way of like, it just eats away at them. It beats the sport out of them of they can't continue year in and year out. And I mean, there were kids that I know that didn't even go, that I coached myself privately for years, that I had to tell them, if you're done with club, it's okay. And it was heartbreaking for me as a coach to tell them that, because working with them for 4 years and seeing how they developed with me and how hard they worked with me. And then their mom would just call me about their club situation and just how it was just beating the sport out of them. It's heartbreaking, but I knew I had to tell the kid that it was okay to leave and that they could always come back to the sport if they wanted to. It's not life or death. But
Well, I really hope that these guys and these organizations, they do come around, they do make some changes. But
I do. I don't know if it's going to happen.
I'm not super optimistic about it, because once you start seeing the dollar signs, it's really tough to go backwards.
It is.
And that's with anything.
It is.
That's,
and
I
here's
think
the other
money's ruined a
thing
lot.
is no clubs in the area are willing to backtrack on their paper success, because they define success as one, money, but two, how winning their club is. And I'm like, I think true success is if you have 11 kids on your club team and 10 or 11 of those kids come back going, that was the best club experience I've ever had. Because that gets them to play the sport again. But they're too worried about trying to train for nationals at 14 years old. And like, you don't even care that 8 out of your 11 kids hate you. They hate you as a coach.
Mhm.
You don't see, these coaches don't see that. Again, ego. And the club directors, they're too far disconnected. So that's why I think we need more developmental coaches that are not just glued to one team, but their job is to monitor the overall health of the club. Because I'll tell you what, the clubs in this area have gone downhill. They're not, they have like one team now or 2 teams that are top caliber teams, whereas they used to have at least one team in every age division that was a competitor at the top 15, top 15 teams in the country. Why did it go downhill? You have to ask yourself. The kids didn't change.
Quality just isn't
The
there
quality
anymore.
changed. The quality changed. They started taking quantity over quality. And you lost good coaches along the way. I won't even touch club volleyball. I won't get near it. I won't get near it. And like I said, I fully admit they'll fire me in a month. I'll get fired in a month because I can't keep my mouth shut. I just can't. It's wrong.
Good and bad thing.
It's good and bad thing. But hey, that's why I'm my own boss. So,
Yeah, and let's transition into being a business owner now. We talk about it all the time because we can relate in that aspect. But
yeah.
You had a story when you came in, like being a business owner. It's my favorite thing that people always say is like, "Oh, must be nice."
Oh my gosh.
Must be nice owning a business.
So the funny thing is like I actually have a Snapchat group that I like send out my vent of the week of dealing with customers and dealing with the public. Because a lot of times they'll see my Snapchat of like, yeah, I get to sleep in until like 9:30 in the morning. But then I'm like, do you understand that I technically was open to the public for 4 hours yesterday? And I came home wanting to drink an entire bottle of wine from it. Like, I didn't. So, but it's one of those things of owning your own business. You have to have thick skin. You just have to have thick skin. It takes a lot of guts. And it takes a lot of belief in yourself and really just trusting yourself and trusting your product and your dream and your vision. Now, that can be a double-edged sword because you can be a total asshole and still believe in yourself. But, like, so that's why I say, like, yes, you've got to break that down further. But being a business owner, especially one that deals with the public, it's not meant for everybody. It is not. No, like, especially now, I grew up on being taught that the customer is always right. No, that I'll say that motto is long gone, that the customer is always right. The customer is now a scammer. The customer is now threatening you with a Google review just so they can get free shit.
I'm gonna leave a Google review.
Yeah, the customer is now threatening to sue you because they think it's going to be a get rich quick scheme.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
The customer, especially like dealing with a business of, yes, I own a roller skating rink. So the customer is dealing with parents of kids that never do anything wrong. Or my favorite, my kid doesn't lie. Okay, now let's back up. Now we know step one of where the problem actually lies is you truly believe your kid doesn't lie?
I think one of the funniest stories you've ever shared, because you've always got a new one, so there's a bunch.
Oh, it's every week, every single week. That's why I said, like, I want to start a podcast of, like, I think I love it because, first of all, I love the name Unpolished, but the name that I actually came up with mine is because mine would be what it's like dealing with the public and talking with small business owners and people that just work with dealing with the public, like servers and getting their stories. And I wanted to call it, like, public intoxication. Because it's just dealing with the public is a whole different level of nightmare. Can be a nightmare. It can be, honestly, one of the most satisfying things in the world, but it can absolutely be a nightmare.
The one story that comes to mind was you had shit on your walls.
Yes.
Literally. You had told me, no, you made someone else clean it up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you made someone else clean it up.
I didn't enough growing up as a kid. I learned.
Yeah.
Now I get to tell other people.
There was shit in the walls. Or shit, not in the walls. There was shit on the walls in your bathroom. Was it? And was it in the girls' bathroom?
It's girls.
It was the girls'
That's
bathroom.
a fun fact. Girls' public bathrooms are way worse than boys. 100%. 100%. Boys, you have to worry about cleaning the urinals. That's the stinkiest part. Girls are disgusting. And the amount of stuff that they think is, I don't know if they think it's funny. They just shove it down the toilet. But yes, we had, God, what was that? Because I've had that several times. Was it a parent that screamed at me about it? Which one did I tell you?
The shit on the walls?
Yeah. No,
I don't know. I just remember you telling me you would come, because you would come to the workout.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, so this happened yesterday. You'd always have like a new story like every 3 days. Yeah. And I just remember you telling me, yeah, there was shit on the walls. And I was like, there's shit on the walls? And I was like, dang, those boys. And you're like, no, it was the girls' bathroom. And I was like, oh my God.
And shit. Like, what it looked like, and I'm not exaggerating, is it looked like they took their own poo and smeared it across the walls. Like, that's what it looked like when I walked in. And
just decorating. Just throwing some decoration.
It's art.
Yeah, it's art.
It's art. So
I think part of, and this is a big difference between your business and my business. My business it's a little more high end, right? So like I'm not necessarily, I don't want to say the bottom of the barrel. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying, there's a much smaller barrier to entry to get into your building. So
because we're a cheap form of family entertainment at the end of the day, and we're one of the cheapest in the area. So
We still got to plan something, by the way. We still got to
We do.
plan like a
we
like
do.
an
We
event
gotta
or something.
we gotta plan a roller skating rink night out. But like to give you here's a perfect example of just what I deal with of weekend in and weekend out. Of people don't understand that the world is not catered to them. They don't understand how the world doesn't revolve around them. They don't understand how anything else works. They just have in their mind how it should work for them, and that's it. Anything else, oh, well, I need to complain about that, or I need to speak to a manager. Like that's my favorite. Like
That was you told me that a couple times.
oh
I need to
gosh.
speak to a manager. Well, you're speaking
Like here's a
to
perfect
her,
example is
ma'am.
like birthday parties. Their arrival time is supposed to be 1 p.m., which is when we open. And I say that we open at 1 p.m. I get a birthday party mom that shows up, who read the email, who responded to the email, who confirmed her arrival time at 1 p.m. will show up at 12:15. And I'm like, oh, of course I'm professional. And I'm like, oh, yep, you guys are just, a little bit early. So we're going to get you guys in around 1 p.m. I said, you can hang out in the lobby, maybe go get lunch and come back. I just don't want you guys sitting there.
They're mad.
Oh, they're pissed. Well, why can't I just come in right now? Well, we're not open right now. Even my staff isn't here yet. Well, that's fine. I'll just come in right now. And I said, no, you're not going to. We're not open yet. And they're so pissed. Or here's my favorite. Well, the lady on the phone said that I could come in. Well, that was me because I take all the phone calls. And no, so as I remember, like, per my last email, like, this is why I could never work corporate because I could never, ever just keep I could never speak corporate. My husband's great at it. I'm terrible at it. But like, the lady on the phone said it. No, I didn't. So that was me. And we talked about it. So like the email that you read where it says like 1 p.m., we're going to get you in around 1 p.m. Well, why can't I come in right now? And I'm like, right there these parents are the first of the generation. I can tell that we're never told no as a kid. They were never told no. Because here I am professionally telling them no multiple times. And they're throwing an adult temper tantrum about it. Now they're reproducing, and now that next generation is even worse because they never were told no, and now they're reproducing kids, and they don't even know how to tell their own kids no. And so that's what I deal with.
Pair that with society's coddling.
Oh my gosh! Weekend in, there like we have a little arcade with prizes and everything. And I watch these parents and I watch these kids throw these temper tantrums about the little, $4 toy that they want. And I watch these parents just give it and just go, okay, fine, have it. And I can't do it. But what I want to do is go, actually, I'm not going to sell that to your kid because
he's being a little
he's
weenie.
being a little shit.
Yeah.
Like, no, you should absolutely not get this for your kid right now. Like, for me, it was.
And that's such a sensitive subject, trying to tell a parent what to do with their kid.
So that's why I just have to be like, it's going to be $4, ma'am. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Like, just like, oh, gosh. And then one of my personal favorites is I can say this of when they ask to speak to the owner and I come out versus my dad comes out, it's two different reactions of like, oh yeah,
sexist sons of bitches.
Oh yeah, and if you don't think that like somebody is asked to speak to the manager, and I've tried to speak with them and they're not having it, and they're like, well, I need to speak to the owner. I have 100% done the 360 and being like, hi, how can I help you? Mostly because at that point, I've already tried to help this person 10 different ways, and they're just not. They don't want to have it. They just want to keep complaining. Because I will say, like, one of my favorite lines to use as an owner is, okay, I'm like, okay, ma'am, like, I understand your problem, and my job is to be a problem solver, and right now we can't get past the problem. I've offered you 4 different solutions to help solve your problem, and you don't want any of them. So we're either going to solve the problem, or we're going to be done with this conversation because you can't move on from the problem. And it's usually that most of the time that line actually does shut them up because it kind of just like professionally puts it back on them of like, hey, I've given you options A through D and you're still crying. So now you're in timeout. I just put you in a professional timeout.
I don't envy you and the constant public that you have to deal with.
Oh, yeah. I just got a phone call last week about a lady who wanted to sue and take everything away from my family because she
just a nice lady.
Oh, yeah. Like in a nutshell, like she fell and
on the rink. So she willingly put wheels on her feet
and fell. This is a very common one, so that's why like I can say it without like potentially giving any court details away. Of like a person falls, and it's skate at your own risk, just like a ski hill. If you fall at a ski hill, you can't sue the ski resort. There'd be no ski hills or roller skating rinks anywhere in the country. We'd all be sued out of our minds.
The one thing I could see is like maybe you give them skates that just fall apart mid skate.
Even then, yes, that one could be argued in court, but it could also be argued.
Have you been taken to court? No, it's never gotten that far.
No, it's never gotten that far. The most it's ever gotten to is like they settle up with our liability insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what nowadays lawyers try to do. Lawyers try to just go around me and they try to just contact our liability insurance.
It's easy money. Easier money.
Easy money. And they're
the sue happy world that we live in.
Lawyers, like, sorry to say, if you're that type of attorney, you are a scumbag. No filter. But they fall, and so what they do, and I don't know if every hospital or urgent care like allows this, but some of them certainly do, that like, let's just say they fall and they have to, be taken away in an ambulance. When they're filling out stuff for their medical bills, they tell them to send the bills to us, that we're responsible for it.
Send the bill to the rink.
And the hospital allows them to do it. That's what's mind-blowing to me. Of like, the hospital's like, okay, sure. And it's like, what? That's a part of the process that I don't understand on why the hospitals are allowed to do that. So then naturally, we don't have to respond to anything. So we don't. And then months later, we'll get contacted by an attorney because at that point, the collection agency goes back to the patient.
You've seen some pretty gruesome stuff though, right? Kids have like broken. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's part of roller skating.
It's part of roller skating.
It's part of sports. Roller skating is a sport at the end of the day. It's part of sports.
Right.
You fall, you get hurt. That happens.
Well, let's talk about some of the positives of owning a business, because whenever I have this conversation with business owners, we like to say how hard it is and how much it sucks. That's true.
It's venting.
That's true.
It's venting about it because we don't get to talk about this a lot. We have to constantly keep a professional face on, and we don't get to just, like my husband, I like to say he's my roller rink punching bag of just like, I come home and I dump everything that happens on him.
I bet Steve loves that.
Yeah. I think he does get entertainment. I think he does get entertainment out of it. But I also like, him with his quick sense of humor. I'm like, you could never do my job.
Kimmy's husband needs to do stand-up comedy.
He really
I'm telling you. He has
really
the look. He has the wits. He's got this stash. We could stitch a picture in him.
Oh my God. But
he makes me laugh. Whenever he comes in, I laugh so hard. I don't know why. I don't know what it is.
That's his humor.
He's got me hooked. He's got me hooked. I've already bought his Netflix special.
He's the funnier one, and I'm admitting that on camera. Damn it. But he is. He's the funnier one.
Yeah, he's funnier than you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, he is.
But the positives of owning a business.
Positives of owning a business. Like, here's a perfect example. I had a parent, this was actually on New Year's Eve. One of our craziest days. Like, I need 2 days to recover from working this day. It's all morning, all day, all night. So in the nighttime session, I had a little girl come up to me. I would probably put her around 12 years old, 11, 12. And she's in a pair of spandex and a shirt. And this shirt is just covered in something that spilled all over her. And she's just like, I'd like to report that, somebody spilled a drink on me. And I'm like, on purpose? And she was like, yeah. And this girl looked terrified, right? And my skate guard came over and was just like, she already told me, like, she called her dad and her dad's on her way.
Who came over?
A skate guard, like one of our
skate guard.
Yeah.
Is this a new thing?
No. Think of it as they're like our floor monitors.
Yeah.
So
there was no skate guard when I was repping at Xtreme Wheels.
Oh, there is. You just didn't notice it because you weren't a little shithead.
Blending. They're blending.
Yeah, you weren't a shithead. You knew it if you were a shithead. You didn't know it if you weren't. So I look over and she points out the group, and it's a group of kids that I've had issues with before in the past. And the dad walks in, and dad, like, I could just describe him as blue collar kind of guy, just, the
dad of the girl that got
the dad of the girl that got drink, like blue collar kind of guy, like, hands callous, like I've put him in some kind of construction or like, works with his hands a lot. And I'm like, I could just tell, like, it was either his night off or whatever. And he's pissed. He's absolutely, rightfully so. And he's pissed. And so I'm just talking to the dad. I'm like, I am just finding out about this, sir. Like, give me a second. And so I called the group over, the guy, and it was a girl and a boy. And like, I've gotten pretty good at telling when kids are lying because I see it day in and day out. And I just looked at this girl and I'm like, did you spill a drink on her? And she's like, no. And I looked at the kid, and the boy is dead silent. I'm like, oh, there's the one I'm going to crack.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, did you spill a drink on her? And the little boy was just like, well, we may have accidentally knocked the drink over. And I go, okay, I'm going to repeat. And the dad was sitting right here. I go, I'm going to repeat this to you. I may have accidentally knocked over a drink on you. I go, you see how that sounds? And I looked at the girl and I said, I'm going to give you one more chance to tell me the truth. I go, because at this point, I already know the truth. And guess what? Right where you guys are sitting, there's a security camera pointing down right at it. And I'm just going to go look at the security camera. I'm going to make you sit here and I'm going to go watch the security camera. I'm going to waste my time doing this because I know you're lying. So I'm going to give you one more chance. And then she was just like, okay, well, we were just like mixing a drink. I said, that's it. You're done. I said, take your skates off, both of you, call your parents. You're going home. And she's like, well, what? I go, no, I need you to understand right now, you are a bully. You're a bully. And it's disgusting that you think that that's okay to do that. I said, I don't know what, I tell these kids. I tell these kids.
Girls are the worst.
Oh yeah. I'm blatantly honest with this kid. Because I will say the same thing. If that mom of that girl came in, I said, you were a bully. And I said, I don't know where you ever thought it's okay to do something like that to somebody, but you're going to learn a lesson right now. Take your skates off, call your parents, you're going home now. And I made him sit, like on the wall, and I'm talking to the dad afterwards. And I looked at this little girl and I just said, I just want you to know how proud I am of you. I said, what you did today is you stood up to a bully. And I said, you stood up to a bully in front of your friends. And I said, at your age, being a girl, that's not easy to do. And I said, yes, you had to go get help, but that's okay sometimes. It's okay to ask for help when things are not okay. You stood up to a bully. And guess what? Like, I am so proud of you and I told her, I said, this is a place where I want you to come and feel safe with your friends. I want you to have fun here. And I said, because I'm looking at you, I was the girl who was not a popular kid. I was teased. I was bullied a lot. And I said, so I want to make sure that if that goes on here, that I find out about it and I stop it immediately. And it was so cute. Oh my gosh. Like, the little girl started crying and the dad comes up to me and he goes, I just want to shake your hand. Thank you. And it was like that moment.
Such a blue collar dad.
Oh my God. And it was just the most just firm handshake.
You can just feel.
And he just said,
what he was
thank
doing
you.
before.
And he said, thank you for standing up for my little girl. And it was like, I'm not gonna lie, like I got kind of like emotional afterwards about it. Of like, it was just like such a feel good moment of like, and guess what? She still comes skating. She still comes skating. I see her all the time, and I'm like, I just like those are the moments where, as a business owner, I got to make a difference in that kid's life, and then that dad also got to see the type of business that we run here. Of like, we don't tolerate that shit. Like, we're old school. We keep an eye on those kids. We don't let them, we don't let them get into trouble. We are strict about it. Like, and, like over the weekend, I had 3 different parents come up to me and compliment me on our staff. And those are the days where I walk away and I'm like, I'm doing something right. I am doing something right. My staff is doing something right. And I will say, like, we have like an app for our, like hours in, hours out. And that's where I can post like messages to my staff and stuff. Every time we get a compliment, I always make sure I put it in my staff because I want them to know that their hard work does get noticed. It just like their shitty work will get noticed, but I want to acknowledge them of when they do a kick-ass job. And like, I'm lucky to say our staff is pretty kick-ass right now. Minor things here or there, but that's having your staff as mostly teenagers, like that's going to happen. And you nip that in the butt and you correct that. And I love giving them the credit that they are owed of like, you guys keep kicking ass. It does make a difference when you are super nice for customers. Like Chick-fil-A is a perfect example. Thank you. My pleasure. Like little things like that of like, you go to McDonald's now. Yeah. What can I get you? Excuse me? You're thrown off when they say that, when you're just like, how about, hi, how are you today? Why is customer service is lost. So like positives of owning the business of like, and I will say this, not just like seeing customers appreciate running a family business, like a true family business where they recognize of like, it's a family at the end of the day. We're not a big corporation. We're not, like a big old movie theater where the owner is non-existent. No, the owners are here right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you go to a true family restaurant, like tell me it's not something awesome when you go to a family restaurant and you see the owner greeting tables of how are you guys doing tonight? Because he's there and he's staying in touch with the business that he built,
Mm-hmm.
and then his staff gets to see him involved. I think that that's such like an important aspect that's getting lost these days. And that I think after COVID, there was a shift where people really started to appreciate small businesses and family businesses again. Like COVID was hell. COVID was absolutely hell if you were a family business. I faced the worst of people, absolute worst. But then I also got to see the best of people come out. And then so many more people started to appreciate how family businesses are different than your big corporations. And I'm seeing that a lot more. And we are blessed to say now that, COVID was hell, but then post-COVID has been awesome. And yeah, it's fucking hard work. Like it's hard work day in and day out. And like there are days where I cry. I cry at the stress of it all. But then there are days where we truly get to say we enjoy the fruits of our labor, where we get to see the benefits of our hard work, and it goes to us and it goes to our staff. And that is such an art that is lost in those big corporations of like, I get to be connected with our staff of like, I get to train our staff for, I like to say, and we still have ex-employees that come up to us and will compliment my dad. And it's like a backhanded compliment of like, Dean, I thought you were the biggest asshole. But then they realize like how much my dad taught them for their future jobs and the realities of the world. Because my dad can be an asshole for sure. But like his intentions
sometimes.
Oh, his intentions are never just to be an asshole. You know what I mean? There's those bosses that are like, they're just an asshole to be an asshole. His intentions are never just to be mean. His intentions are because he's trying to teach you something.
And run an efficient business.
Correct. Correct. And also, not all life lessons are fucking easy. In fact, a lot of life lessons, the true ones that make you grow and make you evolve, are hard. They're hard. And guess what? If you're a parent listening to this, you have to allow your kids to go through it. You do. There is no making excuses for them. There's no trying to hide it. There's no trying to make it easier on them. You have to let them, roller skating pun intended, you have to let them fall and get back up on their own. You have to let them figure out how to pick themselves up. And I see it every day in my job. I see it every day. A kid falls and how their parent reacts to them falling. Now, I'm not talking about if the kid falls and breaks their wrist, because I've seen that too. But like, I'm talking about the average kid learning how to roller skate and falling and how their parent reacts. And I get to see that with my staff of hiring teenagers is hard, is very hard. Imagine watching a 17-year-old kid, like, you've got a broom and a dustpan, okay? You're sweeping the broom. No, this kid propped up the dustpan and he's got a broom. He's just trying to push the broom like this, and it's not a push broom, it's a sweep broom. And this poor kid.
Well, getting staff in general is hard.
Yeah.
So when you add the equation of
But like, here's a
young child,
yeah,
teenager.
yeah. But like, that satisfying part as a business owner is, instead of just yelling at this kid, I'm like, hey, you ever used a broom before? And he turns around and he's like, no. So I had this moment of, could I have been an asshole just to been an asshole? Yeah, because it's 17 years old. You should know. But then I took that split second of asking a question, again, going back into my coaching style of like, have you ever used one? And then you realize the kid has never used a broom and a dustpan. And then I ask, I'm like, and then that's where the little sarcasm comes in. I'm like, what kind of chores do you do at home? And he's like, I don't do any. And then you realize the kid is 17 years old, has never had to do a chore in his life. And so now you have the opportunity to tear that kid apart, which, if you have that old school mindset, you want to. You're like, how the hell have you never done any chores? Like, you little shit, whatever. But you have to fight all that and go back to step one of like, he's never been shown how to do it. You know that kid's one of my best employees now. He's one of my best employees, works his ass off, but he had never been shown how to do any of it. So those are the moments where even with your staff, you get satisfaction as a business owner, because you still get to teach and you still get to pass on hard work and work ethic and enjoying hard work. I think like a lot of the next generation thinks that hard work is hard, so they don't want to do it. That's it. And there's no critical thinking past that of like, well, if you want to enjoy success, you need to work hard. They're not taught that. Why? Because they can open up their phone and they're taught success is instant. Happiness is instant. That dopamine boost that you're getting by opening up your phone is instant. Everything is instant gratification. And so
that one-click life.
Yeah, correct.
Amazon, I need erasers. Boom, be there tomorrow.
Correct.
Need a new water bottle. Boom, be there tomorrow. No, I'm with you. I vibe with everything you're saying. We're at the 2-hour mark, so I've been asking everyone what we'll say from an athlete's perspective, and then from a business owner perspective, what piece or pieces of advice would you give to some young athlete and or young entrepreneur?
I think as a young entrepreneur, the first thing you have to ask is, if you are, one, do you need college? and I say that, and I know that's going to be a loaded question. Here's why. No. Here's why.
Okay.
You have to ask yourself, what kind of business are you opening? What kind of business? My dad never went to college. He's one of the most successful business owners I know. So now, old school, different generation. Here's why I ask. Because a lot of these high school kids are being shoved college down their throat. And these colleges are costing, what, 80 to 100 grand minimum? For what? For what? For what? You're 100 grand in debt
I'm against college.
and you're dumber. I'm going to say it. You're dumber. After 4 years of school.
Well, indoctrinated.
Indoctrinated is a great word.
There's smart and knowledgeable, and then there's educated.
Correct.
And they're very different.
So now
We learned that.
Here's a funny thing. With all the instant information that is available to you now, every single thing that you can find in a college degree is on YouTube.
Yeah, everything's out there.
Everything.
You can find it. You can learn about
Everything.
astronomic physics. Right now, we can Google whatever the hell we want, and we can I wouldn't say become an expert, but
And
we can
so
become knowledgeable in that area.
You have to think, is college right for me based on what I want to do? Because if you walk into that academic advisor in high school, which college are you going to go to? I'm sorry. Are trade schools not a thing anymore? Because I'm going to say this, we are fucked.
Well, all the old guys are retiring.
They're retiring, and none of these kids have any skills. None of them. I mean, I look at some of my friends, and they're like, you built the bar in your basement? Yeah.
You just want to be social media influencers. That's
Or
the number
no, I'm
one.
sorry. Content creators.
Yeah.
That's the new one.
As I sit here on my new podcast, so I'm a little bit of a hypocrite, but I also have a business that I built that sort of supported this.
Correct.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think college is definitely
Correct.
not for
So
everyone.
you have to ask yourself, one, is college right for you? And then if you decide that yes, I do want to go to school, you have to start being smart about money of like, is a community college right for you? Do you actually, like, you know, as an entrepreneur starting your own thing, do you actually need a degree? I mean, look at Elon Musk. Didn't he just switch out where he doesn't require degrees anymore to work for his company?
He prefers you don't have one.
Correct. Why is that? And like, again, everybody, because they hate Elon Musk because the media told them to hate Elon Musk, of like, whether or not you hate him, the dude is one of the smartest people on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And he's loaded, and you're gonna tell me that that doesn't count for anything? Whatever. So it's getting out of this mindset that college is the only way to be successful in life. In fact, we are seeing a massive trend of like kids starting to move away from it, and parents too, because they don't want to pay for it.
Right.
You know? So that would be the number one thing, is ask yourself, is college right for me? I can tell you flat out, if it wasn't paid for by a sport, I wouldn't have gone.
If I didn't play sports, I wouldn't have gone.
Correct. I wouldn't have gone. So that would be my number one thing, is ask yourself if college is right for you. And don't ask your high school academic advisor, because you're not going to get a true answer out of them. They're paid to tell you to go to specific colleges.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my answer for young entrepreneurs. As a young athlete, God, that's a loaded question. There's so many things that I want to say. One,
give the top two.
Do what I didn't do. Play multiple sports. I wish
Which is impossible right now, though.
Correct. It is. Even in the volleyball world, they are still punishing kids for doing multiple sports.
Well, it's crazy because you'll hear a coach be like, "Well, we want you to play multiple sports," and that same coach will turn around and say, "Oh, well, we got fall ball for baseball now, so I expect you there."
Yeah.
Well, how am I supposed to play another fall sport
Exactly.
if you're making me play fall
Exactly.
ball? And fall ball, we all know, is a freaking joke. So,
yeah. High school volleyball is for most programs,
Right.
actually. Colleges don't even recruit out of high school anymore because it's such a
we
joke.
had a client that stopped playing high school and just played club.
Hmm?
So
Yeah.
I've seen it.
There's
And now she's playing Division I.
Correct. There's actually more volleyball players that are moving that way because their high school coaches are so high school volleyball should be the only thing that matters. And it's not. A lot of times I'm like, save yourself injury or take a break, take a real off season.
Right.
Anyway, so play multiple sports. I'm trying to find the right way to say this. Find your balance. Find your balance in life. Find the things in life that can make you happy outside of the court. It took me 30 years to find that answer. And once I did, it skyrocketed my career. And I wish I would have found it. I wish I would have been taught that lesson sooner. But find your balance. Find the things that make you happy off the court. Because that balance takes you off of riding the roller coaster that's on the court, of the wins and losses, of emotional and mental health and all of that. It takes you off of that roller coaster because you have something else that makes you happy, that allows your brain. And like, I'm just going to like plug up, bring me in for another episode so we can talk about mental health on athletes. Cause I could go for another 2 hours on that.
Oh, we know.
On but like your brain needs balance, and find it not on social media. Social media is not the answer.
Get off social media.
Get off social media if you can. Get off TikTok. Get off of those things.
But subscribe to the podcast first.
Yeah, but subscribe. But like the happiness is not in your phone. The happiness is out in the real world, and find those things that make you happy outside of the volleyball court. It could be another sport. It could be reading. It could be coloring. It could be walking outside. It could be playing with your dog, whatever. Find those other things and watch what it will do for your performance on the court. It's amazing that like I don't have a scientific stat on it. I don't have a specific book to read on it, but I can just tell you from experience that it works and it's real. So I think play multiple sports and find your balance. That'd be it.
Love it. It's all great stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we are at 2 hours, 7 minutes.
Pull the cane.
Yeah.
Pull the cane.
I'm gonna yank her off. But no, seriously, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. I'll be back.
We unpacked. Yeah. I'll be back. Well, we unpacked a ton, and it's been
Yeah.
awesome getting to know you. I'm glad that you found TNT during COVID.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks for coming
Now
on,
it's time
Kimi.
to get my ass back in the gym.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about that after we turn this off.
Cut.